Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. Listen, y'all, things are not going well for the U.S. at all. It is so many things being kept out of the media, and they're just really not being upfront with the American people. And the American people are about to be in for a rude awakening because things are getting worse. Prices are never coming down. And Donald Trump has literally ruined the economy. And, there was something that Stephen Miller said when he was talking crazy on CNN. He was sounding like he was outraged that countries are doing deals with China and Russia and all these other nations, and they're skipping over the US. Well, that is true. It's very true. Donald Trump has not recovered from putting all those tariffs out when he first came into office. After he put those tariffs out, a lot of nations vow not to buy American goods anymore. And if you remember, around that same time period, that's when China cut off these white farmers and refused to buy anything from them. Well, that is still going on. China is never coming back to buy from these white farmers. In fact, US meat, nobody is buying it. Nobody is buying US meat. US goods, countries are skipping over it and buying from China and other places. When Donald Trump gets on the news and claim he's in talks with countries and he's making deals, he's actually lying. Countries are not talking to Donald Trump. Countries are not making deals. And that's why every time he makes these comments, the very next day, the country comes out and say they don't know what Donald Trump is talking about. They're not in talks with him, and they're not lying. Donald Trump's tariffs has literally destroyed trade. And the sad part is now that less US goods are being sold worldwide, it's going to fall on the consumer, y'all. It already is. That's why the prices are not really going down that much. Everything is falling on the consumer. And that act of taking Venezuela is an act of desperation. The US is literally not making the money it used to make. And so, out of desperation, they figure if they take a country, this would force the world to come back and do deals with the US. But as we get further into the lives today, you're going to see that those countries are absolutely not coming back to buy from the US. It doesn't matter what they don't care what country Donald Trump steals. They're pretty much saying they are not coming back to purchase from the US. So the countries that walked away, they're never coming back. So Trump and his administration, they are desperate. They're in desperation mode. And I got a live I'm going to do a little later where Donald Trump made this comment. Now that they got Venezuela, the US oil companies will be coming to do deals. Well, the US oil companies just came out and said they will not be doing deals for Venezuelan oil. And Donald Trump is baffled and don't understand why. But they came out, and we'll get into that a little later. So your ConocoPhillips, Exxon, and all of these different big oil companies all rejected Donald Trump in doing any deals in Venezuela. So I really don't care about Donald Trump at all, but I do care about my people and how my people are going to survive as these prices continue to go up, because we got an idiot in office that don't know how to run things. He doesn't have any people skills, just like Stephen Miller don't have people skills and don't know how to negotiate a deal, don't know how to bring countries back that left over the tariffs. So as long as nobody is purchasing from the US, that means our pockets are going to get deeper, as if people need that right now. So let's get into it, y'all. Let's get into it. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And to all the other countries out there who are telling other countries to not come to America, keep it up. Fuck FIFA, fuck coming here, boycott the fuck out of us.
Let me tell you about banking, because I do a lot of banking compliance work and banking regulation work. Now, if you go overseas, you're going to find it's really difficult to open a foreign bank account that's an American. Why is that? Because a lot of banks don't want to deal with Americans. Here's the reason. Americans have to pay taxes on all of their money, even if it's abroad. Any way you make money, you have to pay taxes on it. It's a very rare thing, and not a lot of countries have that. But because of that, a lot of foreign banks don't want to comply with it, don't want to do the reporting, don't want to get sanctioned by the United States. And that's why a lot of them won't accept Americans or people that have American companies. Let me know what you think. Have you ever hit this situation? What did you do to get around it? Did you open up another citizenship, or did you just move to a different bank?
Breaking news, countries are walking away from deals with the United States worth billions of dollars, and it's all because of Trump's tariffs. Let's start with Spain. They were ready to buy the F-35 fighter jet from the US, but after those tariffs, they said, nope, they're looking somewhere else. Like, they're basically saying, why should we help you when you're taxing the whole world without any mercy? Then Switzerland. They had a deal cooking with the US, but Trump slapped a 39% tariff on them. So the Swiss president herself flew to the US to fix things. Can you believe this? Trump didn't even meet her. She flew all the way, went back home empty-handed, no deal, nothing. And the Swiss politicians, furious now, they're talking about canceling a $9 billion deal for AH-36 and F-35 fighter jets. Like, why keep doing business with you? We came to you. You disrespected us. Canada, too. They have a $14 billion deal for F-35s, and now they're thinking of canceling it again because of Trump's tariffs. And don't forget India, they already canceled their purchase of F-35s from the US, and they're talking about cutting more military orders, all because of those same tariffs.
Europe is starting to say the quiet part out loud. France's president basically just said the US is turning its back on its allies. And when Europe starts publicly saying that, that's not normal. America been on this we'll do it by ourselves wave, which sounds strong at first, but here's what nobody tells you. Power doesn't work solo, and this country has never worked solo. Influence comes from relationships, from trust, from being the country people want to work with. And when allies stop trusting you, they don't argue, they don't tweet, they just start making plans without you. New trade deals, new military strategies, new alliances, all happening off camera. And that's how power really fades, not with explosions, but with silence. Because we all know that silence is powerful. And most people won't even notice it until years later when the world feels awkwardly indifferent. That's the scary part.
Breaking news. The United States has conveyed a strict list of demands to Venezuela's interim leader, saying these conditions must be met if Venezuela wants to sell more oil on the global market. Washington has told Caracas that it must push out Russia, China, Iran, and Cuba, ending major economic and political ties with them. These countries have long been close partners of Venezuela, especially during years of sanctions and isolation. But the demands go further. The United States wants Venezuela to partner almost exclusively with the U.S. on oil production. This means American companies would take a leading role in pumping, managing, and rebuilding Venezuela's oil industry. When it comes time to sell oil, especially Venezuela's heavy crude, the country would be expected to favor the United States over all other buyers. In simple terms, the message is this: if Venezuela wants relief, investment, and access to markets, it must choose one side. The U.S. is offering oil sales as the reward, but only if Venezuela reshapes its alliances and places its most valuable resource firmly in American hands. For Venezuela, this is a huge decision. Oil is not just business. It is the backbone of the economy and a symbol of national power. Accepting these terms could bring money and stability, but it would also mean giving up long-standing partnerships and a large part of its independence in the energy sector. Tell us your thoughts in the comments section.
The world's already moving on without us. Ever since the tariffs started hitting, countries have started taking their business, looking elsewhere. Europe's banding together to help each other out because they know we're not going to help out. Like, we are going to be isolated.
I don't know about anybody else, but my eyebrows rose a little bit when I heard that the oil companies were saying that they did not want to go into Venezuela. Exxon, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, they all kind of expressed that they were not interested in doing what this regime has said that the oil companies want to do. Bone Spurs and Lion Levitt at the White House said that they spoke to executives at oil companies before and after the attack, which is telling in itself, because if the attack was for regime change, or if the attack was because they were fighting narco-terrorism, then why would you be speaking to oil companies about infrastructure before the attack? Sounds to me like the oil was the prize in the first place. But I digress. But even though the Bone Spurs administration is saying that they planned this essentially with the oil companies, and the oil companies were on board with going down there and seeing about investing in rebuilding their oil infrastructure, with the promise of full reimbursement, that is, the oil companies are a little hesitant to do that. And I don't know about y'all, but I was wondering why that could be. I mean, yes, the type of oil that is being used, it would cost a lot in order to build the infrastructure so that we could use that oil. But the Bone Spurs administration promised full reimbursement. And even though the Grim Reaper is close, and there is no guarantee that the money for that will be reappropriated, because it seems as if the Republicans are about to lose their grip on Congress during the midterms, which Bone Spurs has already started joking that he should just not have because we're at war. Usually companies would jump at an opportunity to invest in a situation like this, but not if they're reading the tea leaves and they feel like an investment there would be a huge sum of money that they would probably not get back. And this for several reasons. Some are reasons that I've already stated. The Congress holds the purse strings, and there would have to be a bill that would appropriate the funds for full reimbursement. That is certainly not guaranteed, especially since the midterms are this year, and Republicans have been having a terrible time at the ballot box. Hence the jokes from Bone Spurs. But also, China is looking into the situation very closely. And no, I don't believe the hype and fear-mongering that China is going to be sending over 10,000 ships and trying to deal with this militarily. They are way smarter than that. There is no reason for them to out-America when America is out-Americaing itself. China knows how to play the smart game and the long game. Now, why would China be interested in this at all? For one, China is one of Venezuela's biggest allies when it comes to trade. For years, they have been investing in Venezuela, they have had oil contracts in Venezuela, and they have been issuing loans to Venezuela. If that oil belongs to anybody, it belongs to China. And even the oil tankers that were attacked by the U.S. were oil tankers on the way to China, at least one of them. The U.S. and China were, before the election of 2024, in a near-peer contest, with America still inching at the top. Because of that 2024 election, China is in a much better position to win that contest and become the number one power. And they are doing it through soft power and using the actions of the U.S. to put themselves in a higher global position. So no, they do not need military intervention. They can just let America do exactly what it's doing and get exactly what they want. More clout on the global stage. And I talked about this before when I did my videos about that stupid tariff war and how China at that point looked like a more sane trading partner, even to our allies. Even Japan and South Korea got together with China because of the actions of America. Now, Xi Jinping, the president of China, was asked if they were going to start doing military actions in Taiwan because of what America is doing in Venezuela. Usually, America has influence over things like this, but Xi Jinping is actually taking the high road on this, and again, making China look like the adult in the room, basically implying that unilateral bullying has been wreaking havoc on the globe, and urged unnamed major powers to start taking the lead and start respecting international law. More than likely, to protect its assets in Venezuela, they will go to the courts rather than try to do something militarily, because they only need a ruling that their contracts with Venezuela are with Venezuela, not with specific people in charge of Venezuela. So it doesn't matter who is running Venezuela, China still gets its debt repayment and still continues its oil contracts. That is the likely thing to happen with China. But this may explain why Bone Spurs actually wants to lead and run Venezuela. Because if Venezuela's democratically elected leader is actually put into place and given full reign of Venezuela, then those oil contracts that Venezuela has with China stand and will probably not be impeded. If Bone Spurs is allowed to run Venezuela, then they will probably try to snub China and cancel those contracts so that American companies can have them. They did the same thing with contracts in the United States. When they took over at the beginning of last year, they canceled a ton of contracts and regave those contracts to their friends. Elonia Muskrat got a ton of contracts that were meant for other people, including a contract from Verizon that they ended up giving to SpaceX or Neuralink or whatever company he decided to put it under. But denying China not only its debt repayment, but also those oil contracts is definitely something that the Bone Spurs administration wants to do. And they can't do it unless they are running Venezuela. But this looks terrible on the world stage. And this might actually give China more value than even those contracts or those billions of dollars in debt that Venezuela owes them. And it doesn't look at all like Bone Spurs is going to give that leadership position to Machado, even though Machado went to Sean Hannity's show to tell Sean Hannity and Bipoxy Bone Spurs that she wanted to share equally the Nobel Peace Prize. She understands that flattery gets her everywhere with that pathetic toddler. It isn't clear whether or not that is going to work. I personally doubt it, because he already has in his mind that he doesn't like her, because she legitimately won the Nobel Peace Prize and he didn't, even though he and his sycophants begged for it for months. And they have been giving him pathetic consolation prizes ever since. But it just doesn't hit the same, especially since Obama got his Nobel Peace Prize. And we all know how angry he is that he can't measure up to Obama at all in any way. I'm surprised he didn't try to wear a tan suit. But another thing about Machado is she is about democracy. He don't like democracy. Politically, I doubt he agrees with her at all. And the only reason why he doesn't like Maduro is because Maduro doesn't flatter him or bend the knee, like the guy in Argentina who got 20+ billion American dollars that they claim we don't have for the American people. But I digress. Back to China, they have raised this issue with the UN, and the UN had an emergency meeting to basically discuss what is going on with America. And in that meeting, America had no allies. I have clips of that meeting that I will put at the end of my YouTube and Substack, so definitely follow me over there if you don't already. But basically, America got chewed out by not only the Chinese ambassador, but also the Danish ambassador, even Russia. Russia was able to claim higher moral ground. It was a stretch, but they did it. And as everybody was airing their grievances, there were 0 people that came to our defense. We had 0 allies coming to our defense in the UN. I cannot tell you how bad that is for us on the world stage. If China hadn't already won the near-peer contest for the #1 country in terms of global influence, we just wrapped it up real neatly, put a bow on it, and gave it to them.
And by the way, guys, America does not care about the oil. What they do care about is not having countries around them influenced by China, Russia, and Iran. This is the main reason why they went in and they removed Maduro.
Hey, business owner, if you are a product-based business, this message is for you. So as we see of this morning, 33 countries officially announced that they will no longer be shipping to the U.S., right? What that means for you is that you're going to have limited supplies. And when you do get supplies, your price is probably going to triple, if not quadruple. That means if you have if you used to buy something that costs 50 cents, that might cost you $1.50 or $2 just to get that supply or material. So what you need to do now, you need to actually go into your books and see how much net cash you have. If you have excessive amount of net cash, this is your time to start implementing tax saving strategies so that you could use this money to buy your supplies and get a tax credit. And you're going to make sure you buy enough supplies to hold you off until these prices go down. Because with everything going on with the tariffs and everything going on with inflation, your business is going to either make it or break it. So you have to decide what's best for you. If you need help with your tax assessment, comment the word help, and I'll get you started today. Good luck.
It's not actually about tariffs. It's about other countries not buying enough of our stuff. Although Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary and Cologne Sponge, had another way to put it.
I mean, the European Union won't take chicken from America. They won't take lobsters from America. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak. It's unbelievable. We can't sell corn to India. We can't sell rice to Asia.
Yeah.
It's not only because we're just an unreliable partner now, but even when allies are looking to do trade, they see two zones in the world. They see the United States, which is a big no-no zone. It's a big red zone. Do not trade there, they say. And they see the rest of the world, which effectively has only half, maybe even a quarter of the tariff rate that the United States has on every country.
The warning signal didn't originate in any capital city. It surfaced at sea, where fully loaded American energy tankers suddenly stopped in open waters, not because of weather or logistics, but because their destination had vanished. China, the largest energy consumer on the planet, abruptly declined to receive even one shipment, as U.S. harbors filled with unwanted oil and LNG export facilities went quiet. China had already rerouted its energy supply toward Russia, Iran, Venezuela, and its own inland networks, moving with the confidence of a country that had planned this exit long in advance. This was not a slowdown or a pause. Trade volumes didn't shrink, they disappeared entirely, leaving behind a more profound uncertainty about whether China intends to re-engage at all. Even when Washington and Beijing later signaled a temporary easing of trade tensions, energy flows did not resume. Chinese buyers stayed away, not because American fuel was overpriced, but because it was unpredictable. Refiners and utilities made it clear that political volatility had turned U.S. supply into a liability. Stability became more valuable than savings. The first fracture appeared in liquefied natural gas. Imports from the United States collapsed dramatically through 2025, plunging over the course of months until deliveries ceased altogether. This interruption stretched longer than any break since the height of the previous trade war, triggered when China sharply raised import duties, instantly pushing American LNG out of commercial reach. What made the halt more severe was the fact that it violated long-standing agreements. Major Chinese energy firms had locked in U.S. LNG contracts meant to run for decades, yet those contracts remained dormant. Export terminals along the U.S. Gulf Coast were left underused, with enormous investments sitting idle and future returns increasingly uncertain. Oil followed the same path. China had once been a steady buyer of American crude, but within less than a year imports slid from measurable volumes to nothing. Modest tariffs combined with a flood of heavily discounted Russian oil made the switch economically attractive and politically convenient for Chinese refiners, accelerating the retreat from U.S. barrels. Coal trade evaporated as well. What had once been tens of millions of dollars in monthly transactions dwindled to isolated shipments, until American coal virtually vanished from Chinese ports. The change was structural, not cyclical. The world's largest coal consumer had quietly removed the United States from its supplier list. Ethane, previously one of the few growing links between the two economies, soon encountered the same fate. U.S. shipments that had fueled China's petrochemical industry were halted after new export licensing rules were imposed, freezing cargoes at port and injecting political risk into every contract. Industry leaders warned that once energy trade becomes subject to discretionary approvals, trust dissolves. China's manufacturers now face higher cost sourcing alternatives, particularly from the Middle East, and profit margins have taken a hit. Still, Beijing appears willing to absorb those losses. The priority is not efficiency, but insulation. Short-term pain is seen as an acceptable price for long-term control. At the same time, China has reinforced supply lines that are far less exposed to geopolitical pressure. Pipeline gas from Russia and Central Asia continues to expand its share, while domestic gas production steadily rises, reducing reliance on ocean-based imports that can be disrupted by policy decisions abroad. The ripple effects extend well beyond China. With one of its largest customers gone, U.S. energy exports have fallen to multi-year lows. Asia and Europe have both scaled back purchases, forcing American producers to reroute supply at discounted prices that squeeze profits. Infrastructure built on the assumption of consistent Chinese demand now faces the risk of underutilization. International financial institutions have warned that this shift is not temporary. If China's realignment holds, large portions of the U.S. export network could become stranded assets, For Beijing, the strategy fits neatly into a broader transformation. Energy self-reliance, diversified supply routes, and a gradual reduction in fossil fuel dependence all serve both economic security and environmental goals. Emissions have begun to edge lower as renewables expand, and efficiency improves, trimming fossil fuel demand at the margins. Reducing exposure to U.S. energy is not just a trade decision, but a strategic recalibration. The transition is uneven and costly, but from China's perspective, independence is worth the trade-off. China's industrial backbone still leans heavily on foreign raw materials.
The White House said on Tuesday that US military is always an option, even as a series of European leaders reject President Donald Trump's comments about seeking an American takeover of the world's largest island. Trump has floated since his first time the idea of purchasing Greenland, which is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. But after this weekend's US military actions in Venezuela, he renewed calls for the US to take over Greenland, citing strategic reasons. President Donald Trump made it well known that acquiring Greenland is a national security priority of the United States. It is vital to deter our adversaries in the Arctic region, the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said in a statement. The President and his team are discussing a range of options to pursue this important foreign policy goal, and of course, utilizing the US military is always an option for the Commander-in-Chief's disposal. That notable since Trump's newly appointed special envoy to Greenland, as well as Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, has suggested that military action wouldn't be necessary, and asked on Tuesday if he felt comfortable taking military action in Greenland. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson said, "No, I don't think it's appropriate."
Veterans who gave their oath to defend the Constitution are sleeping on the streets of the United States, while a decorated war hero who served not only in the military, but also in NASA and as a senator is having his rank demoted and his retirement removed because he was reminding service members who either served beside him or below him that they have a duty to uphold lawful orders and that they have to uphold the oath that they took to defend this land against domestic or foreign terror. And yet somehow you are watching the tangerine twat waffle who refused to serve in any military, refused to serve in any political service that didn't directly benefit him, give orders that not only violate the Constitution, but morally are an outrage to the point that the rest of the world is now starting to take note and band together against one of the key figures in the United Nations, because the United Nations was formed after World War II to prevent a World War III from ever happening, so that a power of Axis like Germany could never happen again and put cause or harm throughout the world. But the truth is that the tangerine twat waffle, by invading a certain country in the Caribbean, has created such an issue that the whole world now has to stop what they're doing to focus on the petulant child who's running around the hallways with sharp scissors in his hand, and everybody's just ducking for cover, worried that they're going to get stabbed next. Because the truth is that he has violated not only our Constitution, but the laws of the land. He's been convicted of 34 felonies. He has tried to dismantle the very foundation that made this country great. And he has made the rest of the world start to look at us as if we're the villains. And this is a problem that we have to address now, not later. And the fact is that the Pillsbury Doughboy in the Oval Circus, the tangerine twat waffle, who seems to have no problem breaking the law, has now stepped into the world view. And now the world is going to have to address the fact that he has violated not only U.S. laws, but international laws. And when you have the United Nations, who was a direct ally of the United States, now trying to bring sanctions and try to reprimand the United States for their actions against Venezuela, there's a deep problem. But yet MAGA doesn't seem to understand any of this because they're just smart enough to vote, but dumb enough not to ask any questions about why we are taking our U.S. tax dollars and providing it to everybody else in the world while we have children, poor, homeless, going to school without food. We have veterans who are homeless, who have problems and can't get the assistance that they needed, but they were good enough to serve and offer their lives up to defend the democracy that the tangerine twat waffle is now trying to ridicule, piece apart, and sell for spare parts all to line his pockets and to benefit himself, because he's the first president in U.S. history that's actually made $3 billion off of being a president within the first calendar year of being the president of the United States. How is this possible? Can someone please explain to me how power could be this corrupted and we can see veterans in the streets sleeping homeless, yet we have a billionaire 34-time felon running the White House as if it's his own private cash register, and he's fleecing the American people of everything that they held and now making us all look culpable or somehow complicit in his actions because U.S. citizens aren't stopping him from doing what needs to be done. And Congress is basically sitting there with both thumbs up their asses doing absolutely nothing while he runs around and violates every law that they're supposed to be protecting. So if Congress isn't going to do their job, then why are we paying tax dollars to pay their salaries if they're not going to do anything in the first?
Okay, y'all. So that's it. So, I wish I could tell you 2026 is going to be easier, but it won't. It won't get easier, especially if America's not doing deals with other nations hardly anymore. Then I don't know how this place is going to survive, even if you hijack Venezuela. I just don't see how it even would be possible with having Venezuela. So America's in a lot of trouble, y'all. And the Trump administration don't want you to know how bad it is since he took office. Now, we know it was bad even under Joe Biden, but I believe Donald Trump has surpassed Joe Biden. I really do. And I didn't think anybody could do that. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here. And if you can give a donation towards my surgery, I would deeply appreciate it. I'm still trying to reach the goal of 10,000. Again, my surgery is February 18th. That's what I'm scheduled for. And I'm not looking forward to it, but if it's going to help rid me of this nerve pain, I'll do what I have to do. So y'all, I will see you at I will see you at 3:45. That's when my next live will be up. So I hope to see you then. It's going to be going over even more things going on with the Trump administration that they are failing to talk about in the media. Shalom, family.